Tonight, a reset in Minneapolis as the US president prepares to defend his economic record. As ICE agents begin to leave one city, hundreds of miles away, the president is meeting his supporters.
He's doing what I voted for him to do. So.
What about the Minneapolis events at the weekend?
Huge bummer. Wished it hadn't have happened.
The White House is hoping a positive message about the economy will reverse a slip in the polls. We'll bring you the president's speech in Iowa live. And as the internet blackout in Iran lifts, more details of how the authorities crack down on protesters. Tonight, we hear how Iranians are feeling as one of the world's biggest warships arrives in the region. 81 years after Auschwitz was liberated, nations remember the millions murdered in Nazi death camps. And Keir Starmer's attempt to revamp the UK's relationship with China. He'll leave for Beijing in a few hours' time. But what can he actually achieve? We'll assess that coming up on The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Good evening. We begin the programme in two Midwestern cities, Minneapolis and Des Moines. One has been the centre of growing tensions after the fatal shooting of a protester this weekend. The other is where Donald Trump has chosen to address his supporters as his poll ratings slump and concerns about the economy and his tactics on immigration continue to grow. We're expecting that speech to take place this hour. We will, of course, be bringing that to you live. But before that, the US president has been meeting supporters at a restaurant in Iowa. Just have a listen.
We'll do whatever's appropriate. You know, we secured the border. Remember that. We secured the border. We did things that nobody thought was possible. Tom Homan is over there. We all love Tom.
Yeah.
And he met with the governor, met with the mayor. He's going to meet with the mayor, I guess. And it's going very well. But remember this, even Minnesota, their crime is down. And you know why it's down? Because of what we did.
Mr. President, why did you decide to shake up your leadership team in Minnesota and send Tom?
I do that all the time. I shake up teams. Everybody here, these are a lot of owners of farms and places, and you shake up your team if they can't do the crops fast enough.
From Iowa. And Mark, the president there speaking to some supporters, but no doubt the administration is slightly rattled by these poll numbers and, frankly, what's been going on in Minneapolis as well.
Yeah, they are. There's no question about that. I should explain where we are and tell you at the outset that you may hear some bad language. We're with some anti-Trump supporters here outside the rally where he is due to speak very shortly. So some of the signs you may see will have swear words on them. Some of the people may say things that you find offensive, but there we go. We are just outside Des Moines, Iowa, where Donald Trump will be arriving any minute now to give what I think is the beginning of what the administration is certainly hoping is going to be kind of a weekly rally by the president to do what those who are managing him in terms of the election campaign, and it's the midterm year, what they think he should be doing, which is focusing on the home front. But he has two big challenges. One, the economy. It may be doing well broadly, but people are not feeling it. And two, immigration. The southern border may be secure, but there is such huge unease about the methods that his administration is using to crack down on immigration. The supporters here, those who are against him here, I'll speak to them in a moment, but have a listen to some of the flavour of what some of those who are heading into the rally, which is taking place 100 metres away or so, have a listen to what they told me as they went in.
Big fan, and I've never in my lifetime seen a president in person, and we've never done it. He's a big fan, and we just, yeah.
Are you worried about any of the aspects of his immigration policies? It's getting lots of criticism at the moment.
I think he's doing what I voted for him to do. So.
What about the Minneapolis events at the weekend?
Huge bummer. Wished it hadn't have happened, but feel like there were a lot of choices made by some people that were not the right ones, and that's just really unfortunate, but what happens sometimes.
He's found a lot of problems in the United States we had no idea existed. We all suspected that these problems existed and had no idea. I mean, he inspired me to get into politics, so.
You're in politics, local politics yourself,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, as well. So county supervisor, actually.
What do you make? We just come down from Minneapolis. We were there for the weekend's events there. What do you make of what's happening up there?
It's a mess up there. Yeah. I mean, everybody just needs to start being peaceful again and following the laws. I mean, that's what it takes, is everybody just needs to start adhering to the laws.
What do you make of the death, the killing of Alex Pretty?
I can't comment on that. I don't have enough information.
You've seen the videos?
I've seen some videos, but obviously I couldn't comment on that as a public official.
Do you think the administration is losing its way a bit on the immigration issue? They've gone too far, maybe?
Not far enough.
Not far enough. Ma'am, what do you think?
I think it's very complex, and I'm glad action is being taken. It's always easier to be analyzing things after the fact, right? And in the moment, people sometimes make choices. It's very unfortunate. It's terribly sad.
But ultimately, you think the administration is on the right track with immigration?
I think we have to regain control on many aspects.
I thought that final thought there, we have to regain control. I thought that was interesting because that is what the administration is trying to do, I think. They are trying to move away from the chaos that we saw in Minneapolis and regain control, but stick with the message that illegal immigration is wrong and that they need to sort out that problem.
Yeah, Mark, as you say, emotions running really, really high as people try to come to terms with this situation. And apologies to our viewers for some of the language on those signs. Mark, I know you highlighted that too. Let's go to our Martha Kellner, who joins us live from Minneapolis. And Martha, I mean, just listening there to how people are reacting in Des Moines, but where you are, which has become really ground zero for all of ICE's actions. We heard yesterday that Donald Trump was sending in his immigration czar, Tom Homan, and he was taking out some of the rogue elements, I guess, those who were believed to be problematic as part of the operations. Has anything shifted and changed already with the arrival of Tom Homan?
It certainly seems a lot quieter on the streets today, Yalda, in terms of the presence of ICE immigration officers. I've been here 3 times over the past 3 weeks. The previous 2 visits, we saw ICE agents all the time driving around, doing traffic stops, which they're actually not supposed to be doing, but doing lots of sort of different operations to enforce Donald Trump's immigration policy. A lot quieter over the last couple of days, and I think that's because the death of Alex Pretty, the shooting death of Alex Pretty, and the response from the administration in the aftermath seems to have really changed the tide. We had the Homeland Security Secretary, Kristi Noem, characterising Mr Pretty as a domestic terrorist. Gregory Bavino, who was the Border Patrol commander, the face of Donald Trump's immigration blitz, he said that Mr Pretty was at blame for his own death. Well, Mr Bavino has now been sent back to California to do a smaller role on the border there. And I think that says what you need to know about how President Trump thinks things have been going in Minneapolis. He is clearly unhappy, and that's why we've seen Tom Homan come in. And, no one here is disappointed to see the back of Gregory Bavino. Not only do they think he oversaw a culture of aggression from immigration agents on the ground here, he was, of course, the man who oversaw the operations that ultimately led to the death of Alex Pretty, and before that, Renee Nicole Good, who was shot dead in her car while she was observing an immigration enforcement operation.
Martha, thank you so much for bringing us up to date there. Let's focus on Iran now. As the internet blackout is lifted, we are hearing more and more details about what happened inside the country as authorities crack down on protests across the country. It's still unclear exactly how many people died. It's believed the numbers run into the thousands. Donald Trump has threatened action and has deployed one of the world's biggest warships, aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln, just in case. Well, Sky News has been tracking it since the middle of January. Over the Past week or so, you can see it making its way from the South China Sea towards the Middle East. It has now arrived in the region along with its strike group, usually made up of guided missile destroyers, anti-aircraft warships, and 9 squadrons representing over 70 aircraft. So what's it like inside the country now? Well, joining me now is Bita, a human rights activist, a member of Stage of Freedom, which advocates for Iran's opposition through art. Thank you so much, Bita, for joining us here on the program. I mean, we are starting to see, as this blackout has been slowly lifted, and it hasn't been fully lifted, but with the internet has re-emerged, and we are getting a glimpse into the horrors, especially around January the 8th and 9th, which was the intensity of the protest. Just give us a sense of what we're hearing now, what we're seeing as we get more pictures coming out.
Thank you for having me, Yalda. Good evening. I think what we are really seeing is what every Iranian knew would be happening. The blackout really wasn't to inconvenience the Iranian population. It was to turn the lights off so the regime can carry out its atrocities and acts against humanity. We have seen horrific videos of mass shootings, brutalities, even people being dragged out of hospitals. There have been reports and eyewitness accounts of various hospital raids where they have gone in and have taken victims and people that were wounded, still tied to machines, and they have been shot either in their beds or at later dates. So the atrocities are just beyond imagination. I think what is happening in Iran at the moment really is 90 million people stuck in the world's biggest concentration camp at the hands of the Islamic Republic.
Yeah, I mean, the accounts we're hearing are from eyewitnesses, from mortuaries, from cemeteries, from hospitals. We're getting accounts from doctors who are telling us about the number of bodies that are arriving at the hospitals, the injured. The death toll remains unverifiable. We're hearing, I mean, even the regime itself has said that it could be well into the thousands. There are different accounts. Some are saying 5,000, 6,000. Others are saying 16,000. There've even been reports as high as 30,000. I guess we won't fully understand the real numbers for a long time.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, it is not surprising, but the regime doesn't allow journalists to do their job, which is to report on what is happening. And any time we've seen this in history, it has been because a government or anybody that is in power wants to conceal something. I think it doesn't take a real expert or scientist to look at the bodies that are piled up on sides of the streets, what we are seeing inside hospitals. And just to be able to just make an educated guess that we are looking at well into the thousands. I think many in the diaspora and many human rights bodies are now strongly reporting that we're at least looking at 30,000 plus death tolls. And that is death tolls of as young as 3-year-old all the way up to the elderly who are in their 70s and 80s. The regime knows no bounds, no mercy. If you're out on the street, you're getting shot.
And, many are saying, well, this is a climate of fear, the number of dead. Everyone knows someone who was either killed or injured over the course of those several weeks when the demonstrations flared up. They have returned back to their homes. We aren't seeing protests, certainly not the kind of protests we were seeing. But what do you think is going to happen next? Does it feel like, for now, people are worried, are scared, they're in shock, they've gone back home, but they're likely to come back out?
I think, of course, there is always an element of fear when, there is military laws and the entire country is in lockdown. The only difference between the lockdown that we knew and we experienced during the COVID era versus the lockdown that Iran now faces is that people aren't even allowed out to go for a walk. Children are not at school. Businesses are not open. Nothing in the country is operating as usual, despite the regime representatives trying to claim so in UN meetings and councils. I think there really isn't fear as such. I think it's a very tactical decision on behalf of Iranians who are waiting for the next direction from their opposition leader, who they have clearly recognized and have called out for, who is Crown Prince Reza Pahlavi. And I think there is absolutely a call out and a necessity by the Iranian people, as far as they see it, for, foreign intervention. They are facing war-grade bullets with empty hands. So I think it's a tactical thing. And of course, the regime has increased and its crackdown. And we know that there have been very clear reports and evidence that they have brought in foreign support from other terror proxies from neighbouring countries.
Peter, thank you so much for giving us some insight into the situation inside the country. You're watching The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Still to come on the programme, pausing to remember Nazi Germany's murder of millions of Jews and others persecuted during World War II. I'll speak to a Holocaust survivor.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think? It's really unusual. Mornings with Roger and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist. A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra al-Baghir has this report. And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
People around the world have been commemorating International Holocaust Remembrance Day, 81 years after the liberation of Auschwitz, the most notorious death camp. Tonight, landmarks across the UK are being lit up in purple to remember the killing of millions of Jews and other groups at the hands of the Nazis during World War II. Earlier, for the first time, a Holocaust survivor addressed Cabinet. Have a listen.
I sit before you as one of the last remaining eyewitnesses to one of the darkest chapters in human history. 81 years after the liberation of the Nazi death and concentration camps. I'm here as a representative of the British Holocaust survivor community. For decades, we have spoken to people across the country, sharing our painful memories. We have done this out of deep sense of duty to ensure that what happened to our families and 6 million Jewish men, women and children is never forgotten.
Nazi forces systematically murdered 1.1 million people at Auschwitz in southern Poland, which was occupied by Germany. Most were Jews, but victims also included Poles, Roma and LGBTQ individuals. In all, 6 million Jews were killed during the Holocaust. Well, let's bring in tonight Yuri Winterstein, a Holocaust survivor. Thank you so much, Mr. Winterstein, for joining us here on the programme. You know, it's been so many decades since the Holocaust, and we spend this day remembering that day so we don't forget the horrors of what happened. But how would you like today to be remembered?
Well, the problem is, when I was young, we thought the world was so shocked by what had happened that it would never happen again. And in the early years, that seemed to be holding true. Unfortunately, as we know, there have been other genocides more recently, and therefore it makes the work of remembering not just the Holocaust, but all the genocides in a way, but the Holocaust is the one that embraces it, so important. So the work that the Holocaust Educational Trust and the Holocaust Memorial Event Trust are doing are, I think, more important today than ever. Today we're living in a world where hate is growing by the minute everywhere. It's unbelievable to me that this could happen, but that's the reality.
You were separated from your mother and father, your family, during the Holocaust. You were a tiny baby, and you were 19 months old when you were reunited with them. You're tiny, I can't imagine you remember anything about it, but did you spend your childhood and teenage and then adult life being told about what had happened?
No, my family, I think, like many survivors, basically didn't talk about their experiences. My mother told me a number of stories about what happened when she thought I was old enough, or when she was worried that I might start to hear things from other sources. So I was probably about 8 years old when she told me what had happened to me and what had happened to all the members of the family. But generally, they didn't talk about it. My parents focused on the future rather than the past.
And did you, as a young child and then an adult, feel that you needed to do what you're doing today, is talk about it and spread the sort of word about, tackling hatred globally for all communities?
Very ashamed in one sense that I didn't really do a lot of that when I was younger, although I have always believed that, and that's always been my philosophy. But in terms of going out and speaking as I do now in schools or other places, that's something I only started to do in more recent years. I wish I'd done it earlier.
And why do you think it is now that you wanted to do that? Is it because you sense the sort of turmoil that we are currently in globally? That
is definitely a big part of it, because, as I say, when I was younger, we were convinced the world was moving to a better place, a kinder, more tolerant societies. Too slowly, but it was moving in that direction, and now we're sliding backwards at a rate of knots. So that's definitely part of what makes it very important. Another part simply is that I didn't recognize myself as a survivor when I was younger. That was my parents, my sister, and many other people I knew. And I had a wake-up call about 13, 14 years ago or something like that. And I realized, well, I am a survivor and I should be doing something.
Was there something that triggered that for you?
Yes, it was going to a Holocaust Memorial event, and At that event, it was said that we were living in difficult times because the generation of survivors was dwindling. And I walked out of that and I turned to my wife and I said, but I am a survivor. And it was clear from the statement I should be doing something. So what do we do these days? I went on the net to see what is it I should be doing. I found the Holocaust Educational Trust, told them what had happened. They said, well, can we hear your story? So I told them my story, and then they said, would you go to schools and speak for us? And to be honest, I really didn't want to do that because I'm not a public speaker, or I wasn't at that time. I didn't talk about the Holocaust. I told my children a certain amount. They had to know their grandmothers and sisters, their aunts' background a bit. But generally, I didn't really talk about it. So it was with a very heavy heart, but a sense of this is a duty I must do. And then I started to learn that I got back a lot from it because the kids in the schools have been amazing. They listen so attentively. They ask interesting questions. They are the future, and they make me feel hopeful. And I've met wonderful teachers up and down the country. So it's having started out with a heavy heart, I now actually look forward to it.
That's so nice to hear. And just finally, do you believe that never again actually means never again?
I believe we want it to be never again, but history is already telling us it has happened again and again and again. But we shouldn't let the fact that it didn't stop totally mean that we shouldn't continue to make every effort to make it never again. We must never give up hope on that. We must fight hate. We must create a more tolerant society.
Yuri Winterstein, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, the Prime Minister heads to China in search of trade links and warmer relations after years of frostiness.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us?
Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office.
Here it is.
First off, just the scale of what we're looking at.
Our data shows it's been happening. Question is why it hasn't been stopped.
The Prime Minister is preparing to fly out to China in the coming hours on a trip he hopes will build trade links and thaw relations that have been frosty for years. He's threading a tricky diplomatic needle, pressure at home over China's human rights record, and risking a rift with Donald Trump. Our Asia correspondent tells us more from Thamestown, a British-themed development outside Shanghai, which has seen better days.
As a Brit, this might be the strangest place in China. It's been built to exactly emulate a British town, although now it's a little deserted and dilapidated. But is this a good metaphor for UK-China relations? Well, the British Prime Minister is coming this week and he wants to give things a bit of a revamp. So what's on the table? What will be the stumbling blocks? And how does China see it? This place is slightly odd. It's a little bit like being in West London if West London had been slightly forgotten about. Look, this is the Thamestown pub. Some familiar faces. We think this one's meant to be Princess Diana. Oh, David Beckham. What could be more British than the phone box, eh? I wonder if it works. No. But there is a serious point to all this. This place was built in the 2000s, a time when China was getting richer and opening up, a time where all things British were considered desirable. The UK has spent 10 years flip-flopping on its China policy. Previous governments had very little engagement at all. It's that Keir Starmer wants to change. It's the reason he's here. So what will they be discussing? So top of the agenda is trade and investment. And when you boil it down, that is probably the key reason that Starmer is coming. And actually, both markets have different advantages. Both have things that the other one wants. There will probably not be a big overarching trade deal. But look out for things like the removal of non-tariff barriers, increased access, and perhaps cooperation on sectors that are important to both, things like renewable energy or technology. But in reality, both are hedging a bit because their bigger trade partner, the US, has been a little unreliable of late. The big elephant in the room will be spying and national security. It could be particularly awkward this time as there's been a recent spate of accusations about Chinese state actors getting close to influential people in British public life, most notably Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. It is true that the Chinese state has a broad and sophisticated network of espionage and influence. And although it might not come up in the room with the leaders, Keir Starmer will have to keep an eye on British public opinion. That's particularly true as the government recently approved a Chinese mega embassy in London, which its critics are saying might be a base for Chinese spies. As always with China, there will also be thornier issues on the table, things that they fundamentally disagree about. Starmer might bring up the war in Ukraine. Can Xi use his influence over Putin to stop the fighting? And Xi Jinping might bring up Taiwan, the self-governing democracy that he sees as part of China, an issue that he wants the West to leave alone. But perhaps the most immediate case will be that of Jimmy Lai. He's one of Hong Kong's most famous pro-democracy voices. He's a British citizen, and he was recently found guilty of national security offences that the UK sees as politically motivated. Can Starmer do anything to secure his release? So what does China make of it all? Do you know who the British Prime Minister is?
Yeah, 不知道. Because actually in our mind, about the West only has one name, is Donald Trump.
The reality is the UK is not considered to be that big a player. It's seen as being closer to the US and having not made the effort that other European nations have. Be in no doubt, this is a moment of huge opportunity for China, coming just at the time where Donald Trump is fracturing his traditional relationships with Europe.
All the United States is asking for is a place called Greenland.
The victory for China will be as much in the symbolism of the UK rekindling this relationship, just as its one with America is on slightly shakier ground. Look out for some gestures of goodwill, for example, visa-free travel. But remember, China always plays the long, strategic, calculated game. It will not give any ground it doesn't want to, and it will be pushing for its advantage amidst the broader geopolitical picture.
Helen Ann Smith there. Let's bring in our John Craig, who joins me now. And John, it is a tricky balancing act for Keir Starmer here, managing still the relationship, the so-called special relationship, which has seen better days, and now the one that they want to revive with China.
Well, he spelled out his philosophy on this and basically admitted that, yes, he was going to China back at in the beginning of December in his Guildhall Lady Mayor's banquet speech, where he talked about, as you've just said, three global giants, US, European Union and China. Now, he talked about how Britain's relationship with China had, as he put it, blown hot and cold. Golden age under Cameron and Osborne, George Osborne and David Cameron, to ice age under Boris Johnson in particular. Now, he also gave some interesting figures about which world leaders have been to China and which haven't. President Trump went and met President Xi in October and is going again in April. Macron has been twice. He went 3 times now, actually. German leaders 4 times. Merz is going or has been in the new year. Yet in the same period, no British Prime Minister has visited China since Theresa May it was early 2018. Now, I remember that trip. She came back. She took a lot of business people on the plane, as Sir Keir Starmer is doing this time. Billions of pounds worth of trade deals. That's obviously, as Helen Ann was saying, what he's hoping for. The Prime Minister has talked about the value of 370,000 jobs for the UK here. But at the same time, there is that problem about national security, which he has acknowledged. But he said the absence of engagement was staggering, a dereliction of duty. No more, he said. So he's going, as we always thought he would. We always thought he would approve the Chinese embassy, controversial though it is. Priti Patel, mind you, the Shadow Foreign Secretary, said here on Sky News to Trevor Phillips on Sunday he shouldn't go. The Chinese embassy, of course, there have been a few scares about security in recent weeks. Spy dungeons, spy chambers, access to all our emails and everything. But the Prime Minister is absolutely determined on this, to forge ahead with this. He won't be blown off course. And as he says, you've got to engage. He told MPs, Labour MPs a couple of weeks ago, you've got to be in the room, you've got to be on the pitch. He likes those sporting metaphors. And so this is a big trip for him. He's also going to Japan, we should say. I think it's on the way back. Plenty of prime ministers have visited Japan. But this, as he says, is the first since Theresa May in 2018. So it's 8 years, isn't it? A long time. And it's all part of the Prime Minister's resetting, as he calls it, international relations. And as he says, America, Europe, China, one of the big three. And so it's quite a historic trip, this.
Yeah, it really is. John, thank you so much for bringing us up to date. This is The World with me, Yalda Hakim. Next up on the programme, floors frozen solid. We go inside Ukrainian homes to see how Russian attacks are leaving people shivering in minus 20 degrees.
I'm Dominic Waghorn, Sky's International Affairs Editor, covering a world that seems to be unravelling.
It's not his country, it's ours.
Sky News, the full story first, free wherever you get your news. It's half an hour now past the deadline that Hamas issued, and we've now seen a third barrage of rockets coming in.
There's a fresh look to your news from 10 on Sky News.
It's a new show called The Wrap, every night of the week.
We'll still bring you the day's biggest stories,
but with more lively debate,
more in-depth commentary,
and more of what you need to know.
Plus a look at what's making tomorrow's headlines.
The Wrap.
Everything wrapped up for you from 10 on Sky News.
I witnessed the complete destruction of a place linked to my childhood memories.
This is insane.
I'm Yusra Al-Bagher, Sky's Africa correspondent based in Johannesburg, South Africa. I felt awe when we saw the mountain gorillas in Rwanda.
They call him the king of the jungle. This is the alpha silverback.
Sky News, get the full story first.
We're so used to seeing you with Rob. What's it like doing this kind of stuff when he's not here?
Yeah, I miss him. He just inspired me to be a better person. He's shown us what living looks like in the toughest and most difficult of circumstances.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
He had a beautiful death. This is about a dying person's choice to die peacefully when they want to, on their terms.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think is really unusual? Mornings with Richard Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan had the right to respond.
You're like, what?
A historic day here today. Congratulations, this is a huge moment. But what happens now?
You're watching The World. Ukraine's winters are notoriously frigid, but this year's is one of the coldest in years, with temperatures in Kiev plunging as low as -20 degrees Celsius. Russia is using this as an opportunity to bring the war into people's homes, attacking Ukraine's energy infrastructure, to leave families shivering in the dark with no heating. Tonight, Ukraine's energy minister said that more than 700,000 are without power in Kiev. Our security and defence editor Deborah Haynes reports from the capital.
This is just one apartment block in one city in Ukraine. But its residents tell a much wider story of survival as Russia turns their homes into a different kind of frontline. Tatiana lives on the 9th floor. She tells us she takes slow breaths to ease the strain on her heart. There's been no heating here for more than 2 weeks, and power cuts mean the lifts rarely work.
Cold. It's very cold. I walk around shivering, especially in the mornings. I wake up and it's awful. Everything is icy. I turn on the oven and just stand there warming myself. What else can I do? That's life.
A life that was hard enough with the country at war. But Russia is targeting power stations, leaving more than 1 million people without energy in the middle of winter, with temperatures as low as -20. Daria offers her son words of encouragement on what must feel like an endless climb. He's only 2, she's 5 months pregnant, and their apartment is on the 16th floor. From her window, she shows us a nearby building here in Kyiv that was hit in a strike on the 9th of January. This is what she saw. Since then, the heating hasn't worked, the electricity is patchy, and the water's unreliable, so they've temporarily moved out.
With a child, it's simply impossible to stay in the apartment all the time. We came yesterday and stayed for just 2 or 3 hours, and I froze so much that my throat started to hurt.
We look for people who've chosen to stay or have nowhere else to go.
We have been here from the very beginning. We went through all the hardest time here, the explosions, everything.
Yeva asks us to follow her.
How many pairs of socks?
1, 2, 3, and boots. But at home, I put 2 more pairs on top. It is extremely cold.
She wants to show us how burst pipes have left patches of sheer ice on the floor.
I think exhaustion is the hardest part. Every day you have to fight, you have to survive. You're not really living. Days just blur into one another. There is no Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday anymore. It is just one continuous day of survival.
But they're not struggling alone. The fit fetch food for the less mobile, while the practical try to fix the heating. Savelard explains how.
The emergency crew tried to do it. They warmed the pipes on the second floor, moved up to the third, and while they were heating there, everything below froze again. It was completely pointless. But when many people work at the same time, heating everything in sequence, you get results.
We find the professionals battling to unfreeze the very arteries of the building that deliver its water and warmth. Dangerous work, but this is the reality of Ukraine's energy emergency. And in the gloom of the 10th floor, one woman is sounding desperate.
Every single day, your emotional state deteriorates more and more. This feels like an enormous challenge, and everyone is at their breaking point.
Back on the 9th floor, though, there's no sign of Tatiana breaking.
Russia has brought the front line into your home by attacking the power stations. Do you feel like you will give up, or do you want to just keep on fighting?
No, we will never surrender. Never. No. They will not defeat us. We will fight till the very end. We hate them so much. Such hatred for all these Russians. Honestly, we wish them only death.
Evidence that in war, not every fighter wears a uniform. Deborah Haynes, Sky News, Kyiv.
Returning now to US President Donald Trump's planned address to supporters in Iowa. This is the president's attempt to reset the narrative after his administration's immigration policy was criticized. So how have the events of the weekend affected his polling numbers? Well, John Zogby is a pollster and author of Beyond the Horse Race, How to Read Polls and Why We Should. Thank you so much, Mr. Zogby, for joining us here on the program. We're waiting for President Trump to make this address in Iowa. He's going to talk about inflation, the cost of living, frankly, the economy, everything that he had campaigned on and promised the American people he was going to work on. Although it feels like in the last year, he's mostly focused on immigration at home and then all the foreign policy stuff, outside.
Yes, and strictly speaking, I'm a pollster, so we're not evaluating the effectiveness of policy or not. But his polling numbers have gone down, and his signature issue has been immigration right along, as you point out. And his numbers are down substantially on his handling of immigration. They are upside down, meaning that those who disapprove of his handling of immigration far outweigh those who approve.
Help us understand the breakdown, because obviously in states, where there are predominantly Democratic voters, they are going to vote in a disapproving way for Donald Trump. But just looking at those Republican strongholds, how are they talking about Donald Trump? How are they viewing him today? What are the polls saying there?
They're saying a couple of things. First of all, as far as Republicans are concerned, the polling numbers have stayed fairly healthy for President Trump. We do see some Republican spokespeople getting frustrated. You do hear some Republicans complaining about the chaos, the behavior of the president. But when the poll numbers come in, he's lost maybe a few points among Republicans, meaning, I mean, he was at 90%, he's at 86 or 87%. The thing that we really have to pay close attention to, and I think you're going to see a considerable change in tone when he gets up and speaks, is that he's really got a problem with independent voters, those who don't typically identify with one party or another. And then he had made gains among key demographics, younger voters, 18 to 29-year-olds, in the 2024 election. He's lost that. And he's losing now among young men, which is something, that's a group that he actually won in 2024. And then he's also lost a lot, about 10, some polls 13, 14 points among Hispanics. And so, yeah, he's going to try to do an about face here.
Yeah, I mean, those demographics are really interesting because we evaluated them really closely during the election. And the young men you're talking about, the Hispanics, you know, college-educated versus non-college educated, those were the things that tipped it over for Donald Trump. Ahead of the midterms, I mean, is there concern that this could be a bloodbath for the Republicans?
There is. Now, remember, to place things in proper context, the Democrats have a lower favorability and trust factor among the general population, the voting population, than Republicans do. But right now, if the election were held today, the signals are suggesting that bloodbath may be too strong a word, but that Democrats would regain control of the House of Representatives, quite possibly the U.S. Senate.
And John, just briefly, is that because there isn't a clear, identifiable leader within the Democrats? The messaging isn't clear enough? They're still licking their wounds from the election a year ago?
All of the above. So there isn't any one person, with the exceptions of Barack and Michelle Obama. And, you know, we are 50 states. That's a lot of ground to cover. But even in the battleground states, but they are both unable to run. Mr. Obama can't, Mrs. Obama won't. And so we're going to have to get some clarity from the Democrats and a focused issue.
John Zogby, thank you very much for joining us here on the program.
Thank you.
We're just going to show you those shots again of the US President Donald Trump and his planned address in Iowa. Let's just have a look. We're waiting for him to arrive any minute now. And when he does, we will be taking that speech live. As John Zogby was saying, there is an expectation that there will be a change in tone. The wrap up next. For me and the team, good night.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'm going to take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.